Well, Jingle Bell Rock to you all listening to today's episode. This is day 6 on Care Life Podcast with me, Kenzie Rock. If you're wondering what day 6 is, it's day 6 of 12 Days of Christmas, our holiday special. And we interview 12 guests for 12 days for Christmas. So before we begin, please remember to follow me on all my socials and also the podcast socials, and subscribe to the podcast so you know when we upload next. Today's episode will be about a success coach. She is certified by CPCC and ACC. She is a woman who brings powerful impact to high achieving millennials and anybody who's trying to look for success. And her expertise is key in helping them navigate through those transitions with less stress and more joy in ways that are dynamic, interactive, and supportive. They accelerate their success while staying true to their authentic selves. And she also has a BA in psychology and in rhetoric and communication from UC Davis. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you from San Francisco, United States of America, Lisha Davidovits. Thank you so much for joining us here on Care Life.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
We're so glad to have you here on the podcast. And this week, it's 12 Days of Christmas. It's a Christmas special here at the podcast. And we would like to know more about you and your career. So please tell us your story.
Okay, that sounds great. So, my name is Lisha. I am a success coach for high achieving millennials. And I especially work with those that are going through points of transition. And I experienced that in my life to a great degree because I had my professional life and then I had children. And I decided to devote my time to my children and take some time off from work. Once they got into elementary school, then, I thought, okay, well, now I have more time. And I had to kind of look at that turning point in my life and what was next for me and what that new chapter would be, and looking at who I was at that time, how I had evolved, what I wanted the future to be like. So I really had to do a lot of self-exploration and thought about what my values are, what I wanted to lean more into. And that led me into coaching, which was very similar to what I'd been doing earlier, working with people, helping them to take their situations from where they were to where they wanted to be. And I loved helping to bring about that transformation and that change that was so meaningful and resonant for people. So I decided to devote my time to being a coach. I went to the Coactive Training Institute, graduated from there, earned my certification, and I've since also become a mental fitness coach through Positive Intelligence. So that really helps to enrich and deepen what I bring to clients. So it's been a very rewarding and exciting journey. And so, that's led me to where I am today.
Lisha, I'm a Generation Z. I'm not a millennial, and I'm pretty sure me and my peers don't know what a success coach is. Could you please explain more about this career path?
Yeah, absolutely. So a coach is really about co-exploring with someone and saying, okay, I've got this situation going on in my life and it's creating stress, it's creating tension, I'm confused, I'm stuck, I don't know what I want to do. And so it's looking to someone like a coach for help. It's kind of like a mentor, but also someone who helps you explore together. So it's not someone telling you what you should or shouldn't do or problem solving. It's really someone saying like, okay, let's talk about this. What feelings are coming up? Asking powerful questions to help you see parts of yourself, parts of the situation differently that help you as someone who's creative and resourceful and perfectly capable. There's nothing that needs to be fixed. It's like you are who you are, and it helps bring out the best parts of you to go through and to be able to problem solve and to navigate the situation, to work through it. So you're like, yes, this is great. And it's helping you to like be the best parts of you and to have what makes you really happy, to strengthen relationships, to have the success that you want, whatever that is.
That's amazing. I personally didn't know that being a success coach was actually a thing. I didn't know that people could actually coach other people into successes.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that a lot of people also didn't know anything about that. But what are some of the resources that have helped you along the way as a success coach?
It's been a lot of like just learning and this love for learning and exploring how to best support people, different tools and methods to use that's going to help them get unstuck and out of their heads too. Because so often we just get stuck in our own minds with limiting beliefs or self-doubt or worry or anxiety. And so that can kind of keep us in this like survival mode where, I've got to push through this instead of making it easy and flowing. And so really learning ways to help people tap into that has been key, as well as having a coach of my own. Is kind of like, why would you go to a doctor who doesn't go to a doctor themselves? So yeah, I've had coaching and that's been great. And I went to the Coaches Institute, and that was like 200 plus hours of learning in that environment, and then also getting certified with supervision. So there was a lot of training that went into it, and just a love for people. I've always loved people, been fascinated by what makes them tick, wanting to learn about them. So much of it is also who I am and really nurturing that. And that's what I really encourage people to do too, is like tap into, connect with who you are, like who you really are, not who others want you to be, not who you think you should be, who people tell you to be. It's really about like what excites you, what gives you kind of that sparkle and that aliveness, and connect with that and explore like, what does that look like when I'm fully expressing it, and live into that.
Lisha, during this pandemic, a lot of people have lost their way in terms of their career and their lives. And some people will probably have to start all over again when this is over, possibly. What advice as a success coach might you have for people who are feeling like they're lost when it comes to their career or their lives, or want to start over as a fresh new being?
Yeah, well, there's so much opportunity there. Like, yes, it's hard. Yes, it can be, it's just really discouraging, and there can be a lot of worry and stress around it. At the same time, looking at it as a way to like reinvent yourself, to have that fresh new start, can be exciting. And it does take a mindset shift in accepting, okay, this is my situation, I can't change it. And from that place of like just calm energy, feeling really grounded, the first thing to do is to look at, in this situation, what are the gifts or opportunities? And so when you start to look at, okay, what are some of the gifts? What are some of the opportunities? It can be hard at first. But when you start thinking about, okay, well, let's see, I've been out of work for a while. The gift there is maybe I've spent more time doing hobbies that I love, exploring a new hobby, finding, hey, I have a talent for painting. So kind of connecting with oneself more, realizing what really matters in life, maybe what doesn't matter so much in life. And so it's a way to kind of, get that reality check, to check in with oneself, and to be like, okay, clean slate. And I'm going to use this as a chance to make things even better than they were before.
Lisha, I did that personally for myself, and that's one of the many reasons I started this podcast, because it's only been alive for 5 months. And I realized that for me, this is something that I actually love doing, and it's something that actually people want me to do because they enjoy listening to my podcast. So I can say I had a self-realization that Phyllis McKenzie can actually do podcasting despite her being a journalism student. So this is actually a calling to me.
Yeah. Yes, that's a huge gift. Exactly. It's kind of, discovering and reflecting and renewing. And the biggest thing too is like having compassion, and and saying like, what, this is hard, and it's okay for me to be sad sometimes. It's okay for me to be worried, but it's kind of like, if you have your hand on a burner, how long are you going to keep your hand on that burner? It serves you to let you know, okay, there's something to pay attention to, but don't keep your hand on that burner. Don't keep wallowing in, oh, my situation is terrible. Be like, I'm going to look for the gift or the opportunity. And that's amazing that you found that through your podcast. And I hope it brings inspiration to others. Yeah, those setbacks, those disappointments, we can look back at previous situations in our lives too and think about, okay, in the past, when I had this difficult situation, then what did I learn from it? How did I get through it? Because when we see, what, I've done similar things in the past, that gives us the encouragement and the confidence to believe in ourselves and to have that courage to say, what, I've got this. I can do this again. And I would encourage people to go to others for help who can really support them through that experience as well.
Thanks so much, Lisha. And we all know that no one is perfect. No matter how good of a profession you are, you might spend 20 years in college studying for your profession, but one day you might have a failure. So, personally, as Lisha, have you had a failure and what did you learn from it?
Yeah. Well, failures, there are gifts there because there's a gift for learning and for experiencing. And yeah, I've definitely had times where I've fumbled and, it can be a little bit humbling and you just kind of have to like pick yourself up and figure it out. And so one example was there was a job that I had and I really enjoyed it. And there was so much that I brought to it that, was like really great for customer relations, but there was a lot of data to it. And the data analytics were not something that was my strong suit, not something that I had a background in. And so there was a different manager that came in, and that manager was like, I just need you to be stronger with the analytics, to be working with these higher level clients. And so they, at that point, told me that, they felt it wasn't a right position for me anymore. And I felt like I had failed, like I hadn't accelerated my data skills enough to be able to compensate. And even though I was doing great in one area, the data analytics and for optimizing these online campaigns, it just wasn't enough. And so I felt really discouraged about that. And it was really hard for me for a while to have been in a job that I really enjoyed and to feel rejected. It was a feeling of rejection, of, not having succeeded in overcoming that obstacle. And I decided to look at that as an opportunity to do something that was going to be even better. The next thing could be different, could be even better. It's all about perspective. And if you choose to say, this is going to be a blessing in disguise, I'm going to do something where I look back on this with gratitude and with saying, I'm thankful for that happening, then it's more likely to work out that way. When we look at a situation, we can either say, this is bad or this is good. And when we choose this is good, the chances are we'll be able to turn that more into that gift, into that learning that's going to help make our lives even better as a result.
That's amazing, Lisha. And I love asking this question because the internet and social media has clouded people into thinking that some people might have success and it's all an easy road. And why I love asking this question is because I personally understand that your life it will never be pixies and rainbows for you every year. It will never be so perfect for you each and every day. And one time you'll land into a situation where you'll fail, and if you don't realize that failures are part of successes, you might end up losing yourself entirely and all that you've worked for.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you can let it completely unravel you. There's a whole thing of like, do you bounce or do you splat? So when you have a setback, are you going to just splat and be, kind of useless to yourself and anyone else and just like, oh, life is terrible and that's it? Or are you going to, go down and then bounce back up and say, okay, this happened. What can I learn from it? How can I use it to grow? And that's how you get even more success, is you don't let it just like completely destroy you. You get the support from others. That's why, looking at who supports you is really important. Having a good support network for those rough times so that you can build up that resilience is huge. Like there have been so many times in my life where, even in school, like maybe I'd get a bad grade or I'd be struggling, or, relationships, they go south. And the gift there is that there's learning. That's what stretches us. If we're not ever doing something where we fail, where it doesn't work, then we're keeping things so small within our comfort zone and we're not living into greater potential and bringing forth more of like the best of who we are. We're actually like keeping ourselves limited by not failing. Failing, I think of it as like an acronym: feeling alive in life. Fail is to feel alive in life. If you fail, it means that you're taking chances. And so then you can know, like, you know what? Yay, I failed. That means that I took a chance. I did something that was risky. And now I can, take what I experienced and use it to better myself for what's next.
That's amazing, Lisha. And I think that the listeners should actually take that as a point of note, that FAIL is an acronym. I'm actually realizing now That FAIL is the acronym that you were talking about. Feeling alive in life. That's amazing. And can you tell us a moment in life where you had no idea, absolutely no idea whatever you're doing?
It's interesting because as I think about and answer that question, it makes me realize that failure is all about your own perspective of something. Like a situation could go differently than you'd want it to. Does that mean that you failed? Only if you choose to say that that was a failure. So, I have done things that turned out differently than I would have liked them to, or, expected or desired. But I don't know that necessarily would be labeled as failure. It would be something that just was unexpected and maybe disappointing. Just like in school, then there were times that I'd get, especially like for me, math was quite challenging. And what was hard is that I was really good in other subject areas. And so then when like I wouldn't do well, it was really disappointing. I have, a part of me that wants to succeed, that is a high achiever. And so those failures were hard. But then I would look at, okay, what can I learn from this with what I got wrong? How can I learn from that? Or even looking at jobs, like we've all been there. We've applied for a job and we haven't gotten it. And that can feel really rejecting. It can feel like, oh, I failed to land that job that I really wanted. And I coach clients on this too. Like if you don't get a promotion or you don't get a job, that's okay. But rather than being like the victim and it being, oh, poor me, this is awful, get curious and be like, oh, that didn't go as I would have liked. What can I learn? Like, get curious, like, what was the reason that someone else was chosen? Why did you decide that I wasn't right? What might I do differently next time to present myself in a different way? So when it's professional, then you can use that to capture what's going to help you going forward. And then personally too, there have been relationships that haven't gone well, where it was maybe someone that I really liked and it just wasn't a good fit. And that's an opportunity for knowing, what, like this was really important about this person. So this helps me know that the person who's right for me is going to have these qualities. And these qualities made us not so compatible, even though I would have liked to have think it didn't matter, then in this situation it did. So in the future, like this is the part of me that I really want to be able to bring out more and have that person appreciate. And this is what's not so important. So it's, there's always that learning and evolving.
Lisha, are there some myths that you heard about your industry or profession before you started that you want to debunk?
Oh, well, it's interesting because coaching has become so popular, and in a way, it's become a little bit muddled with a variety of people who like they just almost anyone can call themselves a coach. And so it's hard because you can have someone like me, where I've gone through hundreds of hours of training to become a coach, and then you have others that are in their professions and are really exceptional in what they do, and they've learned a lot, they've walked the walk, they have the experience, and then they can coach others that maybe want to rise up in the ranks or to have similar experiences that they had that led to their success. And then you have people that are like, hey, you know what? I'm good with people. I like talking to people. I've got smart things to say. I have good ideas. I'm going to go to this coaching school that's going to be just the weekend, and then I'll be certified as a coach. And, I don't want to disrespect anyone. Whatever your path is, that's your path. At the same time, because there is such a big variety, there isn't that kind of standardization. And so for people, sometimes it gets a bad rap. Someone who says, oh, I'm a life coach, then a lot of people might roll their eyes and be like, oh yeah, they're a dime a dozen, because there are so many and it's so easy to call oneself that versus like a doctor or a scientist, like that they've had to do a lot and it's like totally legit. So I think that makes it hard as far as an industry as a whole, as the reputation and that consistency. But you know what? That's okay, because everyone who calls themselves a coach has a right to call themselves that. But I think that there is an ethical responsibility to let people know that they have a choice, that there are lots of different coaches, and that it's good to maybe talk to a few different coaches so they really can be educated and know for themselves what the options are, and that there are a variety of backgrounds for training and for qualifications, and to make sure too that someone is living up to the ethical responsibilities of being a coach as far as confidentiality and holding the client as the top priority, where it's not going to be about like feeding their own ego or anything like that. They're going to hold the client as being in service to them.
Speaking of ethical responsibility, Lisha, is there a process that one has to go through for you to be certified as a legit coach?
Well, there are a lot of coaching schools, and then there are also now institutions that will recognize certain schools as being accredited. So, for example, there's the International Coach Federation, ICF. And so they have a list of accredited schools. And so you could actually go online to them or to the International Organization of Coaching, I think, is another one. So there are more regulations, and I would say to go to a site where they do have regulations in place. They do, like have schools that they recognize as like legitimate for if you've gone to this school, then you have satisfied certain requirements and expectations as far as the standard of education. So there are ways to like, check on, okay, where did you get your training? What are your credentials? And then, kind of do your due diligence.
Lisha, it's evident that we as humans need another human so that we can draw energy from them so that we can move forward. So who are 3 people who have been most influential to you in your life?
When you ask that question, it brings up so much gratitude because I'm so thankful for each person that has really helped shape me into who I am. And I have 2 amazing parents. I have a wonderful sister. So it started with a really solid upbringing that I'm really grateful for. And even, situations where like, with friends and in middle school, there were, some bumps along the way and, friendships where they were like, see ya. And it's like, wait, what just happened? So then that's hard. But then, I had that situation where I had a group of friends and then, they started, it's like 6th grade, they started changing. They were like, you know what, we're just not so into hanging out with you. And that was hard. But then because of that, I found friends that I'm continuing to be friends with until this day. Like to this day, they are some of my very best friends. And so they support me. So because of that one situation, I found a great support network with friends that I've known since middle school, other friends that I've had since college. They're really close friends. I know I can go to them. I have other coach friends that I've met along the way that I really respect and definitely support me in different ways. So it's important too to think about like people that support us, what areas of our life. Some people might support us on a more personal level, others support us on a more professional level where we can like bounce ideas off of them, use them as a sounding board, or just go to them because we need to vent. And of course, my husband and my children, like they offer their own kinds of support. So and the community that my kids are at for, within for school, like there's support there. So I'm very blessed. And I also realize the importance of having that support. Whenever I start working with a client, I ask them, like, who supports you? Who's there for you? Because those are also the people that can help hold us accountable. Like if we tell them, hey, I want to do this, they'll be checking in and saying, hey, how's it going? Because they care about us and they care about what we're trying to do and want to root for us and to, uphold that and be there for us.
Lisha, what advice would you give someone who is trying to pursue a career in coaching?
I would say, just like really think about what is meaningful to you about that. It's like, for coaches that I know, like, part of my reaction is like coaches that I know, they love it. And so I'm so happy for people who just find what they want to do, what makes them happy. I would say like, do it because like think about why it's important, what matters about it to you. For me, for example, like when I was looking what was next in my career, I was talking to a friend and that friend was telling me about a problem that they were going through and this dilemma of like responsibilities that they felt to their loved ones of, how they wanted them to be, but then how they wanted to be for themselves was different culturally. Like they wanted something that was different from the cultural expectations of their family. And they were really torn and they were talking to me about this. And I was just listening and I was just being present and asking questions. And at the end, the person said, "Oh my gosh, like, I feel like you answered all of my questions and you helped me think about things I hadn't even thought about. You answered questions I didn't even know that I had. I feel like you were just so present for me and you listened. And thank you so much. This has been so valuable. And I feel like I'm in such a different place now than when we first started talking. There's clarity, there's, excitement. I really know what I want to do now." And for me, that just like lit me up. I'm like, this is what I want to do. So I would say, like, have that aha moment where it lights you up, where you have had experience, kind of just being there for someone and really listening, holding them as, resourceful and whole and creative and not broken, but just believing in them, and get such aliveness from that. That's how it's going to tell you that coaching could definitely be worth it for you to explore it further. And then if you do want to explore it, if you're like, this is for me, then really think about like what you need to learn, how you need to develop yourself so that you can show up as much as you can for the sake of your clients. Because for coaches, if we're not working on ourselves, then it's going to be harder to show up for our clients. They're going to say things that are going to trigger us, and then we're going to maybe become biased, or judgment's going to come in. So there's also that personal responsibility to do the work on ourselves so that we can also show up fully for the clients.
So in a nutshell, what you mean is that people should learn to connect with yourself personally and with other people.
Yeah, exactly. And find joy in that, to find excitement and aliveness, because in the coaching engagement, clients can pick up on that energy. If you're like, oh gosh, here we go again, here all that's ailing you and this and that, like, they're going to pick up on that, and then that's going to compromise the relationship. So it has to be where you just like have, this natural presence and compassion, and this like spirit of kindness and of wanting to help and wanting to give to others and to lift them up and believing in them. Because if you don't have that, that's okay, but there's probably something else that's a better fit professionally.
In regards to this, if you were to go back in time and see young Lisha seated in your parents' house, what advice would you give her?
Um, I would say, like, just really stick to what you know is right for you. And that really is what I did when I was growing up. Like, I always loved people, and people would tell me, like, oh, you'd be a great teacher, or you'd be, a great lawyer, or maybe, you'd like enjoy this or that. And it was easy to be like, oh, really? Okay, maybe I should look into that. Maybe I should look into that. And I just knew, like, you know what? Like, it's going to be something with people, because I love people. And because of that, I didn't think about, like, well, this is what people say I should do, so I'm going to follow this. I followed my heart and what I knew was really present and important for me. And so I got degrees in psychology and in rhetoric and communication, because I'm like, that's people facing and I'm going to be interacting. And so I want to build that framework that I know is going to apply to who I am as a person. And that's such an important thing. I've heard many stories where people go into a career, they become a doctor, they become a lawyer. Why? Not because they want to, but because people say, you're so intelligent, you should do that, you should do this. And in the meantime, they have another passion. And oftentimes it's creative, where they just like, there was someone that I had heard about where they loved to bake. They wanted to be a pastry chef and they dreamed of that. And that's what they really wanted. But their father had said, no, you need to become an accountant. Accountants are great. You're great with math. It's a good, solid career. You'll make a good living. Pastry chef, that's too risky. But their heart was always there. Their heart was always with wanting to create and to, do pastry. And so eventually they decided to honor that in themselves. So my advice is to like honor who you are, who you know yourself to be, and then that success is going to come. There's a whole like a diagram where it's like a Venn diagram called the Ikigai model. It's based from Japanese concepts of looking at looking at what you love to do, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can get paid for. And when all of those things come together, that's your life purpose. That's what's going to bring you the most fulfillment.
I actually relate to that, Lisha, more than you can ever imagine, because the Ikigai concept is actually what helped me choose my career path when I entered university, because I remember a few years back when I was in high school, everybody was giving me opinions on what I could study. So my
Mhm.
teachers, they were always like, Phyllis, you love talking and you love research and you love defending other people. Why don't you become a lawyer? And I had others saying, you love astronomy, become an astrophysicist. And I was here, the others were like, you love cooking, your mother was a sous chef. Why don't you become a chef yourself? But
Yeah.
I sat down myself a few months towards the beginning of the school year on university, and I was, Phyllis, what do you want to do? Then during a movie actually is when I learned about the Ikigai concept, and I just sat down, Googled it, and then learned all about it. And through the concept, I realized that, oh my God, I want to actually study journalism. Everything I've always wanted in life is in journalism. So if I want to give the voice to the voiceless, which is what I want, and if I want to become the eyes to the blind, which is what I want, what should I do about it? I should enter journalism, and I've never been happier than I am right now. It's been 2 years down the line in college, and I'm so happy at where I am. And the Ikigai concept is what helped me to where I
Yeah.
am today. Because if I listen to other people, I could have been wasting 7 years in law school. And in the
Yes.
end, I could have been a great lawyer, yes, but it's not something that I would love. And I
Right.
don't believe in working in an industry that you don't have a passion in, because you won't do a great of much of a job.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's hard is people start down that path and then they're 5, 10, 15 years in and they suddenly realize, oh my gosh, like I'm miserable. I can't do this anymore. And all this time has passed. And so they've missed out on all of those years. And then they're like, well, what do I do now? Now I'm in my, late 30s or 40s. And to change, it becomes a lot bigger to do that. And so, kind of there's another thing too, of like looking into the future at your elder, wiser self and imagining connecting with that elder wiser self and really like feeling present with it and then imagining as my elder wiser self, what would that person, what would he or she say to me looking back on me now? What's important? What would she or he want for me? What's not important? What really matters? And that starts to bring up what brings the most resonance and brings out even more of who we are and who we want to live into even more. And that's wonderful for you that you have that clarity. And it's funny when I mentioned the Ikigai model, I'm like, oh, I think she knows what I'm talking about. So that's so great. And yeah, it's been proven to be so highly valuable and impactful. And I explore that with clients as well. And it's just this like beautiful synergy of these gifts and who you are and what you can bring and what's meaningful, and that alignment is so precious. And because of that, then you have that many more years of really doing what you love and doing it even better, and therefore being even more successful. Even more of your potential is realized, and most importantly, you're bringing your unique gifts that only you can bring into the world by being even more of who you are, which is the only person there is and ever will be that's just like you.
Thank you so much, Lisha, for mentioning that. And how has your journey as a coach shaped you to who you are today?
I think it's allowed even more of myself to really thrive. Like when I'm coaching people, it just lights me up. I love it so much, and helping to empower them and to create these shifts where we'll, start a conversation and they're feeling stressed or anxious about something. And through the coaching conversation, they'll just start to shift and to see things differently and tap more into this curiosity and self-compassion and positivity and patience. And because of that, then they're able to be even more innovative and have even more laser focus. And so it's just allowed me to live into myself that much more fully, and to really feel aligned with that sense of purpose. And I'm so grateful for it and so grateful for the clients that allow me to live into that.
Lisha, when I earlier started this podcast a few months ago in March, I had a couple of episodes on mental health. There were about 4 or 5 episodes on mental health. And what I used to remind the listeners at the beginning and at the end is mental health is mental wealth. So, how do you personally plan for your rest and self care so that all your emotions and all your thoughts don't derail you from helping other people?
Well, so it's interesting that you asked that, because when I was going through coaches training, I was introduced to a concept called positive intelligence, which was founded by Shirzad Chamine, who's a Stanford lecturer and a New York Times bestselling author. He wrote the book Positive Intelligence. And for me, that was really key in being able to further increase my mental health and well-being, because I discovered through his teachings and through the mental fitness strengthening concepts how to notice more of when thoughts that don't serve me well come up, when energy or emotion that isn't suiting me well comes up, and to be able to acknowledge that and then to shift. And so it's like all of that resides in like the fight or flight. So for example, there's a trigger of like, oh my gosh, like I've got to get this just right. And I'm doing this workshop and everything's got to be just perfect. And I'm worked up about it and I'm losing sleep over it, or, things like that. Because of strengthening my mental fitness, I've been able to notice like, oh, okay, so there are these kind of saboteurs such as the stickler or the controller or the pleaser or hyperachiever. So now I know what mine are. There's a whole assessment online at positiveintelligence.com where you can take the assessment. So I know mine, like I have a stickler, I have a pleaser, I have a hyperachiever. So I'm like, oh, there's the hyperachiever saying I've got to do even more and keep pushing myself. So then I'm able to really ground myself by quieting that through what are called positive intelligence repetitions, or PQ reps. And it's almost like, so meditation is like a specialized form of that. So it's coming into one sensation, like just the sensation of touch, or just looking at the leaf on a tree and studying it so close. What that does is it quiets that left side of the brain that has all this activity, is creating all that energy. And by quieting that, it allows a shift into the right side of the brain. And in shifting there, that's where there's more of the stage. It's kind of like the dark side versus the light side, or your inner Darth Vader and then your inner. So it's like making that shift. And there's a whole, it's all based on scientific research where you're able to create a neurological change by strengthening the right regions of the brain. And so through that training and that strengthening that I've done and have since started working with clients through, I am able to respond much differently when there's any kind of a stressor. Then I'm engaging more of that right side. I'm able to calm myself and be like, okay, you know what, like, I've got this is happening, I'm going to do my reps. You can even you close your eyes for 10 seconds and you touch your fingertips together, like the thumb and the index finger, and just in little circles, do it for 10 seconds, eyes closed, feet firmly planted, and it just quiets so much of the mental chatter of the inner judge, the inner critic, so that then you can tap into more positive, grounded, peaceful, open energy. And that's really been huge for me. I used to always think I'm just a high-strung person. I'm just intense and stressed. I wish I could be more type B, more easygoing, ease and flow. It's kind of like when you're in the water and if you feel like you're constantly being pulled under, it's so much better to learn how to be an excellent surfer and surf those waves instead of having them knock you over. And I feel like now I've become an amazing surfer. Things happen and I'm like, it's okay, I've got this. Things that used to feel like big mountains, I'm like, oh, that's just a little hill. And it's so huge because I've built up that mental fitness strength. So that's really been such a huge turning point for me as far as that mental wellness.
Speaking of mental wellness, personally, I also did learn about meditation way back when I was in middle school, high school. I still knew about mental health, but I never knew the ways of meditation. And when I started reading meditation books, understanding my chi energy, I realized that, hey, so your emotional imbalances that you normally have and the panic attacks that I normally get can actually be controlled. And ever since I started meditating, whenever I feel too angry, too sad, or maybe I feel that my panic attack is now coming to me or it's on its way, I just meditate and breathe. The few moments where I just close my eyes, count to 10 and breathe are the most energetic moments of my life, because during these moments when I get to control my emotions, they don't end up ruining me or ruining the situation that I'm in. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of listeners out there have also done this point in your life. You don't have to sit down 20 minutes or maybe 3 hours of your time meditating, just closing your eyes and breathing in intervals to 10 is a form of meditation so that you can control your emotions.
Yes, absolutely. And the more that you do it, the stronger the right region of the brain becomes. And it actually shows up in an MRI with consistent practice over the course of 6 to 8 weeks. There's more gray matter that shows up in the right region of the brain from doing that. So it's not just, oh, this feels good, I think it's working. There's actually neurological evidence that shows it is strengthening that, is creating a change in that gray matter. And it's so powerful. And you're right, it doesn't need to be this like 20-minute meditation. Shirzad, the founder of Positive Intelligence, has talked about working with CEOs where like one was a master in meditation, and he was saying these PQ reps, which are, these 10-second intervals per rep, was what he was looking for, because it becomes like a portal to the state that he gets into when he's meditating. But the beauty is that you can do it in traffic. You're there in traffic and you just focus on the feeling of your, bottom on the car seat or your hands on the steering wheel. And you just focus only on that sensation of the intricacies of the grooves in the steering wheel. Or in a meeting, something's going off and you're feeling triggered or your emotions are getting hijacked. You can be looking at someone and just focus on their nose and looking at their nose as if you've never seen another nose. Or for people that are trying to manage how much they're eating, you can do it on each bite of food with your eyes closed for like 10 seconds. You just focus on the sensation of the food in your mouth. And if a thought comes in, you just let it go. At the beginning, there's often that monkey brain. People that get into meditation, I know, experience that too, where it's like, oh, my mind is wandering, I'm getting distracted. Just like say, oh, okay, that's happening. Let it go, get back into focus. And it's so powerful.
My next question, Lisha, is something that I love to ask because many people sit down and realize, oh my God, this is something I could actually do. So, if money was never an option to you, let's say you were Lisha, the richest woman on this planet, what would you do every single day?
Oh, I'm doing it. So yeah, I'd be helping people. I've always loved helping people, doing what I can to improve people's lives. I'm so grateful for all that I have. And I feel even more grateful when I'm helping others, when I'm able to help elevate people. For years, I volunteered. That's always been important to me. And, it's just this like life of service and being there for one another. So yeah, I'm doing exactly what I'd be doing. And I'm lucky that I get paid for it. But if money wasn't an object, I would still be doing it.
That's awesome. If you were in my shoes right now, Lisha, what question would you have asked yourself that maybe I never did?
I think you did a great answer, asking a really nice range of questions
Thank
and knowing
you.
audience and what they'd want to hear. So, I think that's the biggest thing, is to like think from the other person's perspective and what's of interest to them. And it's like, that's so much of showing up, is like, really like taking a genuine interest in other people and thinking about what fascinates them, what do they want to hear. And so, your audience, and I'm sure that you've asked questions that you feel would be of interest to you. And so I trust that you've done a great job and you've been a great person to interact with. And yeah, I would just kind of, any last comments would be, for each person who's listening, to really think about like what matters to you, how you can live into that even more, and talk to friends that really have your best interest in mind and who are going to support you. Because some people, they might feel threatened, where they're like, no, you don't want to go for that role, because maybe they feel like then they wouldn't be good enough or they need to be doing more. And so really think of someone that like really selflessly supports you and wants what's best for you and wants to encourage you to bring out the best parts of yourself and live into that, and get coaching. Like, nobody needs a coach. But if you really want to thrive and live into your fullest potential, then coaching definitely helps, and it makes a tremendous impact. And there are tons of different coaches. There are writing coaches. So for you, for journalism, it could be like, I really want to write this book, I'm not getting it off the ground. So then a writing coach would be great. And there are tons of varieties. It's not just like life coach or leadership coach. And so find something that's the right fit, because you have one life to live, and it's up to each of us to make the most of it and to make choices that are resonant, to honor who we are. And when we're doing that, then we're going to be, offering the most from ourselves and into the world, and making the really meaningful impact that we'll look back on and be grateful for. And to think about, when you're looking back on your life, what is it that you want to say that you've done? What was important? Because so many people can work really hard or be comparing themselves on social media. But in the end of life, no one ever says, oh, I wish I'd been as cool as that person, or I wish that I'd been as successful. It's like, no, I wish I had spent more time with people that I loved. I wish I had let the people that I loved know how much they meant to me, to show that gratitude. So really think about the end of your life. What is it that you want to be grateful for? How are you showing up? How are you living? How are you honoring yourself? And start doing that today.
I'm pretty sure my listeners out there have taken that into note. And if they haven't, I encourage them to actually do that, because we're coming to the end of the year. And in January, we all expect that the vaccine will be here and everything will go back to normal. But what we must look out for ourselves personally, is making ourselves much better than who we are, because we have had a pandemic for over a year. Most of us have been stuck at home. We have done nothing for 12 months. So what are you visioning yourself 10 years from now, personally, Lisa? Because I know that my list of vision is huge. It will always continue growing. It's a huge bucket list. So for yourself, who you're already in a career path that you love and adore, what is your vision 10 years from now?
It will have been just living into that more and more, working with more and more people, because there's such a ripple effect. And the more people whose lives I positively impact, the more people they positively impact. And so, that's the thing, is it becomes tenfold, and then 20, 30, and it starts to scale. So to touch as many lives, in order to know that in my lifetime, I made a positive and meaningful impact. And in order to do that, I know that I need to show up with courage and with pushing myself outside of my comfort zone, because that's going to help me scale it even more, as far as like helping more and more people, and to know that I made as big of an impact as I could make, because I lived into it courageously, rather than knowing, well, I could have done more, but oh, that just made me uncomfortable. I didn't want to go there. So it's like, like Tara Brach says, to play big and to just go for it, and to really know that getting uncomfortable is key to expanding that comfort zone and growing in who you are and what you're bringing to the world. So I would say, that's what I would want to look back on, to know that I really did it. I played full on, and I brought the power of meaningful impacts in people's lives.
I really hope that your vision does come true, because you're an amazing coach, and if people look on your website, they can see the amazing things you have done, and they can also take part in your life coaching lessons so that they can have better lives. And I'll link your website down below. But are you anywhere else on social media, in case the listeners want to follow you on any of the media platforms?
Thank you for asking. Yes, I'm on Instagram and Twitter it's coach_Lisha. And then I have a Coach Lisha Facebook page and a Coach Lisha YouTube channel, where every week I have a new episode that is called Love from Lisha, for an extra dose of love in your life. And so I've got, episodes that are new each week. And yeah, so there's, it's easy to get in touch with me. And for those that are listening to this podcast, and if you reach out to me and you mention the podcast, then I would love to know that you came from that, and to, hear about what you're wanting for your life, and to offer, something extra special for you.
Thank you so much, Lisha, for being part of this episode, and for being part of this amazing 2 weeks, 12 days of Christmas.
Thank you so much. Yes, I'm so grateful to have been a part. And for anyone that reaches out to me this month, then I'll have a special holiday gift for them.
I will ensure that they reach out and that they make sure that they get that holiday gift. But anyways, happy holidays to you and your family, Lisha.
Thank you so much. Thanks to you. And I hope that, with this year being different, I hope that everyone finds the beauty in that, and getting creative and getting inspired to make it extra special, to introduce something new and interesting that they're going to remember fondly for years to come.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of day 6. I hope you learned a lot from today's episode as much as I did, or as much as the next person. But if you'd like to get in touch with either of us, links will be in the description down below. Subscribe to both our YouTube channels where we both upload during the week whenever we can. And also subscribe to my podcast so that you know when next I upload. But, anyways, please have a very productive week, have a successful week, have a very amazing and safe holiday, because I love you all so much, and I'd love that my listeners have amazing days that are safe and productive too. So, anyways, till tomorrow, day 7, I'll be here and I'll be waiting. Bye.